Oh, thank you, City Clerk. All right, folks, we're going to get started here. The Monday, March 27th meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hanley. Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Ottaway.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Stonehouse.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Here. And Mayor Mayer.
Here. Commissioners, I will need a motion to excuse both Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Hanley for personal reasons. Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
I move we excuse Commissioner Hanley and Commissioner Smith for personal reasons.
Commissioner Ottaway.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now that brings us to approval of the agenda. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Ottaway.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. Second, Commissioner Larson.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I do not have any announcements for this evening. It's just going to bring us on to our boards and committees. We have one reappointment this evening. Do we have a motion on the reappointment? Commissioner Larson.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Tara Glusky as the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for a term ending 04/01/26.
Thank you. And do we have a second? Commissioner Ottaway.
Second.
Any discussion, comment? Okay. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. That brings us to our first public comment session of the evening. As a reminder to the public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person, and please state your name and physical address prior to giving your comment. And if we have anyone for public comment, feel free to approach the center podium.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Olson. I live at 116 Hillcrest Trail in Marquette. I want to address once again the issue of water fluoridation. I'm going to read some from the letter that I wrote to the mayor last Monday. I'd like you to read both articles that I had distributed to you, please, and I would very much appreciate a response from each of you. That has not been what has happened with other information I've given you, and this is a very critical issue, so please honor my request and make a response. Visit the website if you haven't already. I assume you haven't because I didn't get a response when I asked for a response. If you don't know the truth about this issue, and that's not what you're going to hear from the EPA, which is now in federal court, with Judge Chen ruling that the National Toxicology Report had to be made public. The EPA has tried to hide it for years, ever since it went to court 3 years ago, and now they've been forced to make it public, showing that this substance that's being added to our water, which includes the phosphate fertilizer, hydrofluorosilicic acid, is being added unlawfully. It has never been proven safe. It is not the sodium fluoride put in our toothpaste, which has a poison control label on it, very interestingly, that if you swallow the amount of this toothpaste, all of the fluoride toothpaste have that, then you must report to the Poison Control Center, because 1 dollop of that toothpaste contains what 1 glass of fluoridated water contains. So I want to read a little bit from this letter. Given that fluoride has been classified as a drug by the FDA, it is not a nutrient. The FDA has openly stated it's a drug. It has only been approved in drug form for topical application with toothpaste. It has never been approved to be ingested. It has not been approved for ingestion. The city of Marquette is continuing an unlawful practice by adding this unapproved drug to our public water supply, thereby medicating the water of our community. I'll go on down. Over 300 communities in the U.S. have ended this unlawful practice, including Iron Mountain, Houghton. Iron Mountain actually never did it because they had a very educated dentist in the community who went to the city and said, please do not do this. It is not safe to be ingested. And that was over 40 years ago. They have not done it. Houghton, and more recently, Portland, Oregon. The residents of Portland were educated concerning the toxicity of the substance, and they subsequently decided to vote against it, even though the pro-fluoridationists who wanted a place to send their hazardous waste, they were going to lose a market. They spent several $1 million trying to counter what the educated people who knew about the fluoride toxicity were stating, but they lost. Multiple medical doctors, many of whom have been my teachers, I've been a health professional for over 27 years, have written about the harmful effects of ingesting this toxic substance over periods of time, since it accumulates in our brains and bones and causes interference with the normal function of the thyroid gland. So
Excuse
I'm
me,
asking,
Ma'am, that's 3 minutes.
I'm asking that you would please read the material.
Ma'am, please, that was.
Could I
it's
please just
I
end?
have to be fair and keep the rules the same for everybody
Please
else.
review the material.
Ma'am,
and
if you
please
do not return to your
respond.
seat,
And
I will
please
have the Sergeant
respond.
at Arms return you to your seat. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Yes. I'm Dar Shepard. I'm from Marquette, Michigan. And just to go along with what Valerie was saying, a couple points that I'd like to bring out. Fluoride is an endocrine disturbing, neurotoxic, and bone weakening substance that the Food and Drug Administration defines as a drug when used to prevent disease, because unlike the minerals we need as humans, have no physiological requirement for fluoride. But because fluoride's toxicity, you cannot purchase fluoride supplements over the counter. They can only be dispensed by prescription under the supervision of a doctor. In short, sodium fluoride is not a nutritional supplement. It is a prescription drug and a dangerous one. Infants fed baby formula with fluoridated water have lower IQs than those fed with unfluoridated water. So please, it's unsafe, it's illegal. Please stop this process for the sake of our community. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Daniel Labar. I'm at 3050 Island Beach Road. Just wanted to comment on the Presque Isle Power Plant land. Seems like there's been a lot of development along the lakeshore in Marquette throughout my lifetime, and I'd like to see a focus on community and green space, and I think it would be a good idea to turn that into a green space, maybe use it as an educational opportunity for the university to do some environmental rehabilitation.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, my name is Doug Garrow. I'm at 337 Elger Street. I'm here, I'm the high school hockey coach, and I'm on the Marquette Junior Hockey Board. I'm here just to ask you for the same deal, I guess, that Northern is doing. If you don't know, Northern, the rink is shutting down, the main rink, Russell, at the end of April. Not going to be put back in on the Olson till the middle of July. So that's like 10 weeks with no ice in this community because Northern's redoing their floor this summer. We're asking that the ice be put back in the middle of June. I know Northern has a deal with the city, or I've heard they have a deal that they're going to give you $20,000. The first $20,000 of rentals goes back to Northern. It's kind of an insurance policy for you guys so you don't lose money, which I understand. And anything over $20,000 will go to the city. Marquette Junior Hockey is willing to do the same deal. I will be getting a letter. We have a work session on Wednesday. I'll be getting a letter. I'll get it to the city manager and also to John, the park and rec coordinator there, who works down at the rink. We would just like to see the rink open a little more this summer because there's a lot of opportunities for the youth to have in the summer to go to tryouts and really develop their skills And it's going to help them in their future, whether they play junior hockey, go on to college, or what have you. But not having ice for 10 weeks is quite a detriment for these kids, and I just want to try to get it open a little earlier so we have some opportunities for these kids in the summer to stay out of trouble. Period. Okay? So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment this evening?
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. This is usually a point in time where I can get up and say I'm not speaking on behalf of the Board of Power, Light and Power, which I'm not, but I am speaking in my role as an adjunct assistant professor at the College of Business, Northern Michigan University. I want to read, for the record, to the City Commission and to the Chief Police Representative, an event that happened in my classroom after the shooting at MSU. And I want to encourage other groups, educators, people who get together to reach out to the police departments as I did, because I found it very useful. And I'm just going to read the whole thing. It's not as long as what I usually say. Detective Aldrich and Sergeant Wernholm, thank you for visiting my class in business law on Thursday, February 16th, 2023. My students appreciated learning from you how NMU and the City of Marquette Police Departments work together to prepare for any security threat to NMU and all the people who are on campus. The terrible events at Michigan State on Monday night were challenging to all of us, and I do believe your visit today with your professional communication of how students could and should prepare for and react when there is danger on campus was helpful to my students in, open quote, processing, close quote, the events of Monday night. I myself gained some level of comfort knowing how direct the communications are between NMU and its students and staff about events of concern. I was also glad to know that NMU has a system set up to notify students and staff of any defined risk on campus. And I was pleased to find out that as soon as word of the MSU attacks reached NMU police on Monday night, that the president of NMU was notified so that in the event any decisions had to be made with respect to the safety of NMU and its people, that the president would be ready to make them. I will be recommending to my fellow faculty members that whenever their students express concerns about safety at NMU, that they reach out to both of you for a visit to their class. This was, as you know, the events at Michigan State, which had a direct impact on anybody who's attending college anywhere. My experience inviting the professionals of the Marquette City Police Department and Northern Michigan University to come in and speak to my class was positive. Obviously, it's an event that is scary. Also, obviously, at least at Northern, students are given one briefing on safety when they first join the campus community, but they're not required to repeat it. And in the chemical industry, where I've spent my entire adult life, we had monthly safety meetings. So anytime anything happened, we got together and discussed it. So I wanted to bring this to thank the members of the police department and their professionalism for showing up. I had absolutely no doubt that if I asked, they would come, and they came, and they were very well received. And I also want to encourage the groups in Marquette who gather at certain points in time to have a safety briefing. And with all due respect, I would encourage the City Commission to spend some time on a safety briefing for these meetings, just because I'm pretty sure you haven't had an official one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment this evening?
Hello, Jennifer Ray, 431 East Ridge Street. I'm here just to give support for the hard work the DDA has been doing for the social district. The one concern that did come up that I would have to agree with is if there was any issues for employees with people wanting to get into the businesses. But I think once it becomes normalized and understood that it's just for on the streets, or sidewalks, I should say, that will not be an issue. I know our town, I don't foresee this being kind of a drunken, disorderly problem. So I am in support of the social district. I also would like to kind of voice my support for the Wednesday farmers market closing down Washington Street, as long as we're able to address the issues that would affect a few of the businesses on the street, which I think the DDA has been addressing very well. And you know, that those concerns hopefully can be outweighed by or minimalized, and then we get our fun lively Wednesday evenings, and I think that that vitality that both the social district as well as the Wednesday farmers market, that will bring to the city and the downtown is well worth it. So I hope you all vote in support of both of those. I am. I'd also like to say that I am also in support of getting fluoride out of our water. I think it's something we should look at and address, and that there isn't really a reason for it to be in our waters. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Matt Ludenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave, City of Marquette. I didn't really expect to be able to speak in the first half, so I'm going to try to keep this short. A couple of times ago, I came up and I asked about the funding differences between a private household that rents out their house to a renter and a corporate entity that rents out multiple apartments and complexes. How is that taxed differently? I didn't get a straight answer. I didn't get a quite exact answer. Is a household taxed differently than a apartment complex for any size? And at what point does it become, instead of housing, does it become commercial ventures? On that note, it comes down to, because you keep complaining about funding and how there is no funding and that we need funding for certain things and activities. So if funding only comes from property taxes, how is it that the housing market is the only thing you seem to like promote and try to sell to? We never seem to have an extension of this social network, like Spring Street. What's going on with the Spring Street parking lot? That's been about 4 years in discussion. Personally, the farmers market, I wish you could have on Spring Street. Close off that whole block. Nobody's intruded. You have parking then on both sides. You could easily walk around. On Washington, that's a main thoroughway, and we use it for everything other than just going shopping. So please consider that. Blueberry Fest is great, but it closes off a road, and there's a lot of residual parking that has to be done that takes up space from going up to another store. Anyways, I sidetrack. Going back to funding, I'm curious, because if public funds only come from property values, how much does a election cost our town? I'm trying to tie the two in, because if we don't make money from other things, does an election cost $10,000? $20,000? Is it $1 per resident? What's the metric for how much a municipal-wide election costs? Because we're about to have one, primary or not, but we used it as an excuse, and no offense to the two commissioners who are just joining us, but we used it as an excuse to fill our positions on this seat. And it's something to say that the elected officials, there's 3 of you. The people who got started on this by an appointment by the 5 of you, how is this metric broken down? Is it 10 cents a vote, or is it $1 a vote, $20 a vote? My time is up. I'll try to finish later.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Brings us to our first presentation of the evening, and that is a recognition of our Northern Michigan University Japanese scholarship student. And if Paulette and Masao can join us at the podium, I'd appreciate it.
Hopefully you can hear me all right. Masao Hayashi has been our student at Northern this year. He's served as the 42nd scholar that Northern has sponsored through our Sister City program with the state of Michigan and with the city of Marquette. His host family, I want to be sure to introduce, Betsy Little and Paul Moran, here, wave your hands, have been gracious parents and hosts during his year here. He will be staying now until Northern is out at the end of May. When he came here last August, he actually left his university as a junior level student. And so when he returns back in October, well, he'll leave here in May, but he'll begin classes again in October and resume his classes, doing his studies that he will mention to you when he speaks at his university in Shiga Prefecture. While he has been here, he's been a very good ambassador for the city of Higashiomi in the Shiga Prefecture, in that he has worked with Bill Brazier, a teacher at Sandy Knoll School, through a exchange video program with third graders at an elementary school, which his mother is connected to in Higashiomi, and with Bill Brazier's third grade students here. And it's been a very fun adventure and experience, and it's the first time we have done this, and I hope that we can do more of this in the future, exchanging information between our elementary students and maybe on into our junior high students as well. I know that the commissioners have a printed bio on Hayashi's background and what his future plans are, and so I'm not going to read the entire program, but he does plan to continue doing more research, so his education is going to go on for a couple of more years in Japan, and maybe he'll come back here, my input, to finish his graduate degree, because he has fit in very well into this community, and we've been very proud to have him. So it's my pleasure to thank Mayor for inviting us here this evening and for letting me introduce Hayashi to you. Please.
Good evening. Thank you for your welcome. My name is Masao. Since I came here, I experienced a lot about Marquette, and I enjoyed a lot of things. I enjoy studying, I enjoy nature, I enjoy meeting people, and I had a great time. And also I realized a lot of times that like 43 years of history between Marquette and Higashiomi, and so I still have 1.5 months until I go back to Japan. So until then, I do my best to be a bridge between two cities, Marquette and Higashiomi. Thank you for inviting me tonight.
And Masao, we have a little gift here for you.
Thank you.
From the city. And a cool thing that I didn't know I got to do as mayor, I would also like to present you with a certificate as a honorary citizen of the city of Marquette.
Thank you.
And I hope you come back again soon, okay?
Yeah.
Can I get one?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Now I'm just going to jump in here to our Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee by our chair. Here. All right, there you are.
Just confirm spacebar to switch to the next slide. I'm sorry? The arrow. Got it. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Tara Glusky. I'm the chair of the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee. Our presentation is not very long, so you can move on to really exciting business, but go ahead and get started. Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee is one of, or maybe the only advisory committee out there that has a full complement of members. And I think that speaks a lot to the park and the passion and enthusiasm that people have to protect the park. So we're really grateful to have such a great group there. Purpose and goals, this doesn't change year after year. This has been the same since, I believe, 1993, as it mentions there. It's to review and develop recommendations that impact the island, study the vitality of ecosystems on Presque Isle, and to recruit and organize volunteer groups to maintain, repair, and improve facilities and opportunities at the park. There are 6 accomplishments listed that our committee specifically wanted to have on here. I'm just going to touch on a few of them. The first one being the recommending of adopting ordinances. So the history there is that PIPAC as a committee spent numerous years reviewing land use code and ultimately made recommendations to that, which in the end ended up being amendments made to city ordinances, and those were approved just in 2022. Number 3, this is maybe the more tangible thing we've done this past year, which is having numerous meetings, and this also spanned a couple years, discussing potential signage language and ultimately recommending the installation of information kiosks in the park with some rules signages as well. The next slide, we have pictures of that in case you're interested. And finally, the one we like to talk about is Leave No Trace. We have a past member who was a big proponent of Leave No Trace and worked with the university, and a current member who's going to be, I think, helping along with that as well. So we had several Leave No Trace type events occur on the island in 2020, including a cleanup by the NMU Conservation Club, guided interpretive hikes with Jackie Medina, and some workshops led by Scott Jordan on the island. The kiosks and signage that we will be putting up. The kiosk, one of the kiosks, I believe it's still just one, is in place right now at the Breakwater Loop, with 2 more being put up in the near future. The sign on the right is a prohibited activity sign. I do want to just say that we did hear all of the recommendations from last year, and we understood that people were hoping for positive wording, and I think ultimately what ended up happening was consistency. There were not really some positive ways to say some of the things that needed to be said on here, and so to keep it consistent, we went with this this format. And our goals for the upcoming year, we want to continue to have discussions with the City Commission. Specifically, maybe a work session would be ideal to discuss ways to mitigate some safety concerns that we have regarding parking congestion, increased traffic, and as it says there, general disregard of park rules and ordinances. We'd also like to continue to advocate for protecting the park, including the land and the wildlife. We've worked with reviewing the deer management plan for a few years, and there's a plan in place for a deer census, and also to continue protecting the blue-spotted salamanders during their spring migration, which is occurring right now. And finally, we want to continue to pursue ways to provide education to the public regarding Leave No Trace. We're interested in seeing an increase in social media sharing related to the island and its rules. We've also learned that the city is joining forces with Travel Marquette to share information on ethical tourism, which we think will be very helpful, and we hope that that information can be shared through social media as well. Other than that, short and sweet. Do you guys have questions for me? Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Tara, first off, thank you for being reappointed tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reappointing me.
Our first order of business was reappointing you.
That's right.
I will say, just in my years of coming to city commission meetings, I know this isn't your first time speaking. I've seen you do it before, so I think it's awesome that you're basically an expert in this field at this point. So we need more people like you, as Commissioner Stonehouse always says. So thank you for that. But I will ask, one of the things that seems to come up often at commission meetings is addressing dogs at Presque Isle. Are those things that you guys discuss often?
Sure. Actually comes up frequently with us as well, and ultimately it just comes down to the city ordinance and state laws. So whatever those state laws are is what the city follows. So those are the rules as they pertain to the island as well. And additionally, at the island, dogs aren't allowed outside of the vehicles anyway. So I think it continues to be an issue. And the sign that I just showed does say that. And there are several signs throughout the park that say that as well. And I think we'll just continue to be diligent in watching that and hope that we can fix that problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Been past the Stonehouse. Okay, thank you. It is really good to see a full slate of committee members. And as I look at the list, I know that these are people who are pretty passionate about the park and will make some really good decisions and recommendations to the commission, so I appreciate that. And I'm also very appreciative of the signage work that has been happening. And yes, I was that commissioner who kept saying, please make it a positive, you know.
I remember,
But
I have the
I
notes.
will accept that. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, and, you know, I know how difficult signage can be when everyone thinks it's simple. So, yeah, thank you. The goal number 3, I was curious because I didn't see any reporting on that, but and that has the goal number 3, it talks about organizing volunteer groups. So maybe what I heard in your presentation was the volunteering in terms of the Leave No Trace, and maybe with Northern and the Blue Salamanders, or are there other things that you're doing with goal number 3?
So we work with the university. A couple of the professors there, Scott Jordan and Jackie Medina, have been involved. One of our past members, Barb Coleman, was really intimately involved with those folks as well. And then we have a new, because now Barb is gone, she's off of the committee, and we have a new committee member who has expressed an interest in sort of carrying that torch. So the hope and plan is to have more events going on that would be Leave No Trace focused.
Okay, thank you. And there might be some others. I know that we, at least I, as one of the commissioners, have some communication about potential volunteer rangers, and I think that that might be worth looking at more. I don't know if it will work or how it will work, but having some volunteer rangers out there might be a good conversation to continue.
So certainly if that item comes on the agenda, then our committee would review it as a whole and ultimately make a recommendation to the commission about it.
You know, and finally, I'm really curious about your wanting to continue to work with the commission on safety concerns, because that is always an issue out at the island and the park, and also some longer-term planning, what to do about the band shell, the playground, maybe consolidating some of the facilities and as we try to update them. And so those are all things that I would hope for in the future with the park. The condition of the road, condition and placement of the road, but those are all kinds of things that are what we need to look at for the future of the Presque Isle. But thank you so much for all the work you and your committee are doing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Thank you for what you guys do. I mean, I know in many cases it's got to be thankless, and you're pushing this big ball up a hill, but it's worth it. I mean, protecting Presque Isle and keeping it to be the jewel that we know it to be is doing God's work, I think. One of the questions that seems to pop up on the commission periodically is, how do we handle, or are we trying to handle, RVs, large vehicles trying to come around the island? And I'm looking at that more from a safety perspective, knowing the difficulty the fire department has in trying to access the island during the summer, anywhere along the loop road, for whatever particular reason they need to be there.
So I'm not a road expert. I'll start by saying that. That conversation has come up several times. Ultimately, and John may be able to step in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that a decision like that, well, first of all, it would have to be brought to us specifically to discuss, but also it would be a matter of Public Works. John, am I getting that right? Or maybe just basic city rules? I don't know that as an advisory committee we can make a decision on that. We could certainly make recommendations, but again, I don't know where that line is drawn for us. I'm hoping John will step in and save me here.
I would be very interested in seeing a recommendation, as much as I would be in seeing a swing-along put up over the road going into the park, you know, the things with the big steel bars.
Yep.
And when you hear clunk on your vehicle, you're not where you're supposed to be. Because there are people that do try to do that, and it impacts everybody that's trying to be an island user, and it's simply neither safe nor reasonable. But I'll leave that again in your hands to turn it over and chew it finely. But again, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
I have one quick last question, and that is the archway that used to be over the, as you enter. What is the status of that?
This time I am going to insist that John step in, because he'll probably have more details than I do at this stage of the game.
Yeah, so that archway has been rebuilt. It's actually at Public Works, and then the goal is to install it this spring. So there's been some issues with contractors and things of that nature, but yeah, that work has been happening over the winters, and it's looking like that's going to get put back up in its original form.
I'll just add that's great to hear. Very excited about that. I want to thank you for coming and presenting to us tonight and for all the work your group does. And I look forward to some of those recommendations, hopefully in the near future. To Commissioner Stonehouse's point, I would also be very interested in seeing a recommendation regarding RVs on the island. If you can't, that's okay though. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners, that brings us to our consent agenda, which will recall a roll call vote due to item 4C. Excuse me. Do we have a motion on consent? Commissioner Ottaway?
I move to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Larson?
Second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, item 4C. I know the DDA is here. They've done their due diligence in this. I think it's important, especially when we have a decision like this, you know, possibly closing down Washington for a period of time. We listen to the people that are doing the research on it. And I think that, I know that they've probably put every effort needed and really reached out to the right people to figure out how it's going to work. So because of that, I think it's important we stand behind that.
Commissioner Larson?
I'd just like to echo what Commissioner Ottaway is saying, and just noting that this, I believe this is only for, affects 12 total nights or 12 total days, you know, over this next year. 11. I was one off, apparently. So it affects 11 days. And so given that, you know, I think that is a short enough period of time that if it doesn't work, we assume that the DDA will come back and reevaluate whether it's, you know, appropriate or not to continue. So I'm in support of trying.
Thank you. Is there any other comment or discussion from the commission on consent? Okay. All right. Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add on that with that specific item, good, okay, is, you know, at Marquette over the last year or two, we're trying a lot of new things, and there's going to be some growing pains inevitably with them, but we'll just keep adjusting and work on it from there. That being said, City Clerk, if I could have a roll call vote, please.
Of course. Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right. Up next brings us to item 5 under unfinished business, which is ordinance 721 Black Rock Crossing tax exemption, which will also require a roll call vote. City Clerk, if I could get the background, please.
The City of Marquette has been approached by Woda Cooper Companies Incorporated, WODA, to support the potential low-income housing development within the city. WODA develops, designs, constructs, and manages affordable housing communities across 15 states in the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Southeast United States, and has existing developments in Menominee, Munising, and Sault Ste. Marie. WODA has proposed a development located at 1502 West Ridge Street and identified as Black Rocks Crossing, utilizing the low-income tax credit LIHTC program. LIHTC provides tax incentives to encourage developers to create affordable, low-income housing targeting renters earning less than 80% of the area median income. As a component of the LIHTC program, the development will require an ordinance from the City of Marquette exempting the project from all ad valorem property taxes and replacing it with a payment in lieu of taxes, PILT. WODA has offered a PILT equivalent to 6% of the annual shelter rents collected by the housing project during each operating year. City administration has reviewed this request and has found it to be in line with other PILT arrangements located within the city of Marquette. Approval of this ordinance and PILT request is consistent with the recommendations made in the Ad hoc Housing Committee final report and approved by the City Commission and incorporated in the city master plan. Per city charter, this ordinance cannot be adopted at the meeting in which it was introduced, and it was introduced at the Commission's regular meeting of March 13th. Fiscal effect, the city will realize 6% of the annual shelter rents actually collected by the housing project during each operating year as the payment in lieu of taxes. Recommendation, adopt ordinance 721, Black Rocks Crossing tax exemption. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. And to the commission, before I throw it to everyone here, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware we do have a representative here if anyone has questions, and the city manager has slides if anyone needs them as well. With that being said, is there a request for either of those or a motion?
We have slides of the development.
City manager, could we pull the slides up?
Yep. And they're simple, just graphics of the location, an unofficial map of the location, kind of showing where in proximity this is. And yes, it looks like an F, but that middle area is actually the continuing road there on Grant. And then the other slides that we do have are the where you see the building development would be in that F, and then also the actual sketch plan that was presented to the Planning Commission for review, initial sketch plan review here. So a little bit of a visual assistance, I would say.
Would you go back one step?
What's that?
Huh?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm curious about that blank space on the middle part of the F. Is it green space? Is it like park area?
That is green space, but there's a lot of topo and elevation there. There's a lot of rock up on the top.
Okay,
So we won't be doing anything but maintaining it.
okay. Thank you. That helps.
Maybe you could do a short background.
Sure. Would you actually mind just coming up and giving just a quick background? And I can just give you a privileged comment for that.
Yes, Craig Patterson, address 518 Lakeside, Mackinac City. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development for Woda Cooper Companies. We've been looking for years for a site in Marquette. And we found this site, and based on the MISHDA funding application, we believe the site will score well and gives us a good chance of getting funding. There'll be 50 units in 2 buildings. You've seen the buildings. Since we met the last time, we have completed our GOs. We've reduced our budget on rock. There's not as much rock there as we thought there could be. We also went before the Planning Commission last Tuesday, got a 7-0 vote in favor of the sketch plan. We will ask for funding in an application on April 3rd. It'll take us till July to get response from MISHDA. We will compete against all other developers throughout the state that have sites and scoring and investors like we do, and then the highest scores win. The pilot is absolutely essential when it comes to 2 things: keeping our investors on board with the highest equity prices for the credits that will be transferred to them once we get funded and we close on equity. And the second reason is, in order to get the funding, you have to have certain scores that are competitive. In this particular section of the QAP, the scoring matrix gives 5 points, and 5 points out of generally about 95 to 100 points is huge in the overall scheme of things. One thing I didn't mention last time, or it might have been brief, we have approached the Housing Commission, the Executive Director, Maki, and we have submitted, or we're getting ready to submit a response to an RFP. And if we're successful, there'll be 8 Section 8 vouchers that are placed on the property that will remain on the property in perpetuity. There will be a contract the first 20 years, and then it can be renewed. That'll give the lowest income individuals who have desperate need for this housing the opportunity to come in at a lower rent. The second thing we've done, I've met with the tribe, the Keweenaw Bay tribe, on 3 occasions. We're entering a development agreement to give them a portion of our general partnership. And in return, we will also set aside 9 units for tribal members and their descendants. Now, what that means, if those units are set aside, they have to stay there. The tribe has to help us qualify, and they have to come up with a wait list, and we'll work intimately with them. But they stay there until a tribal member who's qualified can be brought on in those units. So a lot to happen between now and April 3rd, but this is a key moment in our application process tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any comments for him while he's up here? Commissioner Stonehouse?
I'll ruminate more than comment, I guess. We certainly, I think, need the affordable housing. But what troubles me is what we're paying for it. And by what I mean is, I understand that to get the federal money, we have to come up with a good score. And one of the ways we come up with a good score is to have a PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. And the lower the PILT is, the better the score then looks as the document is reviewed by the higher authority. I think that's probably a true statement. But right now, the PILT would be 6%. It's about $19,000 a year. Of that $19,000, the city of Marquette would get maybe $7, because we're paying the state, we're paying the county, everybody else has got their fingers in the pie too. But for that $7,000, the project, in terms of the theoretical costs that would be paying for city services it would be consuming, in other words, we still have police, we still have fire, we still have DPW, we're plowing the roads, we have all of the recreational services in the city of Marquette that are applied against that project in the same way they are applied and provided to every project for an apartment building, let's say, or for your home. You pay property taxes on your home, and the city then provides you with all of these things. But in this instance, the developer is paying very little, 6%, of what legitimately you could argue they might. Again, that $19,000 is against perhaps maybe $100,000 if that were legitimately taxed property. So that disturbs me financially, because I know that you just can't keep milking the dead cow. And what I'm trying to explain with that is city services continue to be pushed as far as we can push them to do everything they're doing, and that's remarkable. But we will, in effect, have an unfunded liability, or generally unfunded liability, for the city to fulfill in the normal functioning of that particular project. So the balance then is, do we want the 50 units, or do we want to be financially a little more prudent? And I'm not advocating the up or down on that. I'm only making sure that everybody understands it, that with every PILT project, that's exactly what we get into. And I think the 6% is a low ball. I'm told by the folks that do this kind of thing that 10% becomes more of a high ball of what you could expect, but all of that then again works against the project being accepted. So it's a delicate balancing act. And I think I was correct in what I stated and how I tried to couch the argument on that. Nothing further, Your Honor, but I do think it was important that we all had a working knowledge of it, that this is not a free lunch.
Thank you, Commissioner Sonos. I'm thinking we're looking more so away from the presentation, more discussion now. So I will need an actual motion for us all to start really getting into a discussion. So I guess, commissioners, do we have any motions on this item? Commissioner Ottaway?
Before I make a motion, I would actually like to pose a question to the city manager if possible. Karen, is it possible for you to discuss PILT, and just kind of where we are as a community, what we typically take in, what the norms are there, and just kind of give a little background on that for us.
Certainly. So a PILT or a pilot, as they're sometimes known in other areas, a payment in lieu of taxes, is certainly what we have kind of heard here is a different arrangement in order to allow for some local support into a housing development, which is a needed thing for our community, but also then allowing it to be sustainable under the model that's both federally and state funded here. And what we have done, and what we've seen in the past with our 6 other housing developments that kind of fall under this payment in lieu of taxes arrangement, there are 6 of them, and what we have seen is a 4% of sheltered rents for an indefinite period of time, and that all total of 6 of those developments with this 4% PILT arrangement equates to $30,000 of tax revenue to the city. So that's again about, when you equate it 40% of what they are paying. So $30,000 in order to provide services to these 6, housing developments. However, again, serving a much broader need for our community as well. So 4% indefinitely, whereas this development is a 6% for 16 years arrangement. If that's a good comparison. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you have anything further, Commissioner Ottaway?
I believe Mayor Pro Tem Davis had her hand up. Oh, go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
I move that we adopt ordinance 721, Black Rocks Crossing tax exemption.
And do we have a second on that motion? Commissioner Larson?
Second.
Discussion, Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes, I am very appreciative of Commissioner Stonehouse comments because it is something that we as commissioners understand and the city staff understands. However, it's very difficult for the community to realize when they ask for housing, and affordable housing, what it really means when we put these kind of developments into the city and tax rolls. I am in favor of this because it has always been the request from the community, and so diligently that people talk about the need for affordable housing, and this is what we have been looking at with the Ad Hoc Housing Commission and what we've been working towards for several years, at least all the years that I've been on the commission. So I'm really happy that this company is interested in Marquette. I'm very appreciative that they're interested in Marquette and are offering at least a little more of a PILT than what we have with our other PILTs. So that is why I'm supporting this particular proposal.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson?
I'd also like to say that, I understand where Commissioner Stonehouse is coming from in his comments, how we're looking at that and how maybe 6% isn't as ideal as it could be. It's certainly, an improvement over the 4% that we do have. However, in kind of recognition of, the Ad Hoc Housing Committee, as well as, our master planning process and the citizens of Marquette who've really have, suggested that, we look at affordable housing. We have a project in front of us here who does have a 16-year, 6% kind of a limit. There's the option to negotiate after that point in time. This is 50 units. It's not just a couple of housing units, a single family that are kind of put together. So it does bring a little bit more quantity, into it, which, I'm certainly appreciative of, as well as, the work that they are doing, potentially with the tribe, as well as, our local housing commission as well. So I think, given all of those pieces, I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Any other comments from Commissioner Stonehouse?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Ottaway, you good?
I'm good.
Yeah. I will just add to this that, I feel like when I was running for the commission, the number one thing I always heard about was housing. Ever since being on the commission, again, it's just the thing that continuously keeps coming up is affordable housing. And it goes back to this thing that we like to talk about fairly often, which is everything's kind of a balancing act with the city. And we need tax revenue, but at the same time, we need affordable housing units. And, you know, I've actually been going through our master planning survey results that we've been getting, and it's not really surprising to me, but overwhelmingly, one of the biggest trends is affordable housing is being identified by the community. And we have an opportunity here tonight to create 50 more affordable housing units. And I feel like walking into this meeting, I already know where my mind was at, and I am very much in favor of this. I think I would be doing a disservice to everyone that voted for me and has supported me since I've been on the commission if I didn't. So, is there any other questions or comments, Commission, before I call for a vote? Okay. City Clerk, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, and that brings us to our last item of the evening. Yep. Which is the Downtown Marquette Social District, which will also require a roll call vote. City Clerk, if I could get the background, please.
Under state regulations approved in 2020 and made permanent last year, the governing body of a local government unit may designate a social district within its jurisdiction. Qualified licensees who license premises are contiguous to the common areas within the social district and that have been issued a social district permit may sell alcohol in their licensed premises to customers who may then consume the drinks within the commons area on the social district. The Marquette Downtown Development Authority, in an effort to support economic development and increase opportunities for businesses and recreation, is requesting the Marquette City Commission approve the establishment of a social district and commons area that would encompass all qualified licensees within the boundaries of the downtown development area and allow for outdoor consumption in designated areas throughout the district. A map is included. The Marquette DDA will be the designated manager of the district and responsible for informing the public and businesses about the rules and regulations of the downtown Marquette Social District. Additionally, the DDA will be responsible for maintaining signage related to the district and for removal of waste. The Marquette DDA has met with the City of Marquette Police Department, who is in support of the proposal for a social district. The DDA has held informational meetings with the majority of the businesses that currently hold an applicable liquor license and could participate in the social district. The response has been overwhelmingly positive from these businesses. The DDA has also held 2 public meetings to explain the proposed social district and answer any questions the public may have. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, approve the attached resolutions establishing the Downtown Marquette Social District and recommending MLCC approval of the applications for the MLCC Social District permit. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this item? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. I motion to approve the attached resolutions establishing the Downtown Marquette Social District and recommending the MLCC approval of applications for the MLCC Social District permit.
Thank you. And do we have a second on that motion? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Commissioner Stonehouse, any comment or discussion?
Well, I think this is an interesting opportunity for Marquette to step forward, to try something new, a different experiment in the way of having a vibrant city, a vibrant downtown, and we'll see how it works. Anything we do, we can certainly undo if it turns out to be inapplicable. So this is a good step forward, and hopefully we'll have it up in time for deep summer.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Commissioner Ottaway.
Yeah, this is extremely exciting. It's one of those things that really promotes our downtown, our businesses, kind of gives us every chance to get everyone out and about and come together. One of the things we learned, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, right at the outrights of COVID, there weren't enough opportunities to get people out and about and just, make businesses keep going. That's why these things have kind of started to develop, and we have kind of kicked this can around for a while. I know our city manager is extremely excited about this. Our DDA director is also extremely excited about this. I know they've put the background work in it, and I'm extremely excited to support this.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
I am going to support this motion, but unlike Commissioner Ottaway, I'm not excited about this. I'm a little bit apprehensive about this, but I'm going to put my faith into the DDA and assume that they have studied this enough and will be working out all of the issues that I'm assuming are going to be coming up. I took note of the city manager from Negauni's comments in the Mining Journal recently when he talked about that there were issues, but he didn't talk about what they were, but they're working to decrease the number of issues. And I do foresee some things that are going to have to be, and I'm seeing Tara nod her head. I'm just going to put my faith in the DDA that they understand the amount of staff it will take, the amount of adjustments that it might need to take. It seems to me there's a lot of monitoring and enforcements that are going to happen by not only the establishments and the police, but also regular citizens. I mean, I'm assuming there's no, that the multi-use path is not in this district. So if I buy my beverage across the street and walk across the street, who's going to stop me? So there are all those kinds of things. I'm also very concerned about the one-use containers, particularly if they're plastic, because we just don't need more in our landfill. So what I didn't see addressed in the plan was plans for recycling. Not that recycling is an answer, because everything that we recycle doesn't always truly get recycled. So the whole one-use containers is a concern of mine. And finally, and I don't know if we can bring the DDA director up here or not, but I'm curious about what metrics will be used for evaluating this, and if there's any sort of a baseline for evaluation.
I think we certainly can if you're open to that. I can give you privileged comment for that.
Certainly, I was a little afraid I wasn't going to get a chance to, talk to you guys about this, but I'm glad you invited me up here. I'm Tara McKinney. I am the executive director at the Marquette Downtown Development Authority. So I will speak to some of your questions that you had. First off, with the containers themselves, we're strongly encouraging compostable or biodegradable paper or plastic cups whenever possible, just because we have tried in the past implementing recycling programs, and unfortunately we don't get enough buy-in from the public to make those viable, and essentially they become trash. So unfortunately, that's something we've seen. So while things that are compostable will end up in the landfill, they'll break down more quickly than just regular plastic would. Then as far as metrics and things like that with potential issues that we could have, we have met with the Marquette City Police and talked this over with them, and do plan on meeting with them regularly about any potential issues that may arise. Also, we've had strong encouragement from our board, as well as keeping track of those issues that may arise, and potentially making recommendations to the Marquette City Commission to make adjustments as are seen to be needed, whether it be in the time or potential locations of the actual social district, to address any of those potential issues that we may see arise.
So I'm still curious about how you're going to, what things you're going to be looking at to evaluate. And I heard police reports.
Oh, sure.
But I didn't hear anything else.
So essentially, anything that gets reported to us as well, whether it be excessive trash, which we do have plans for putting in extra trash cans all around the district as well. But for, as far as like public drunkenness or anything like that, or anything that gets reported to us that is above and beyond what is currently happening, in the downtown, we would just use as a baseline. So anything above and beyond that, we would look at that and look at ways that we can address that, whether it be through public education or, like I said, addressing it with the city commission.
Will you be looking at sales from the businesses at all, or?
Definitely, definitely. We will be in close communication with them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Tara, could you please just talk about, just for public record, just the hours of what the social district's going to look like, just so the public has a good idea of what the picture is that you're painting.
Sure. So we are proposing Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we are proposing a consistent time from day to day, just to minimize the confusion for people and to just make it easier for people to follow the rules.
Commissioner Larson?
Do you mind if I just touch on that real quick?
Go for it.
Just because I wanted to make sure that it was something that Tara had worked with us on, making sure that the plan was flexible to address any of the questions on hours, if there is a need or a sudden need and a sudden need for reaction or changing something, that the maintenance plan, which lists the hours and determines the hours, is flexible enough for her to be able to change with, consultation of us or the police department, but be able to do that in a flexible way. So I just want to make sure that that was an important point, because that document ultimately outlines how we respond to concerns, and hours are one of them, and that was something that we left very flexible. Thank you.
Commissioner Larson?
One of my questions is taking a look at, the map itself. You've got the blue and you've got the green. Now you've got the social district, which is highlighted in blue. Does that allow businesses essentially to have additional seating on their property because they're in the social district, where they may have had to have food and outdoor beverage service prior to that? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I want to explain this map just a little bit, because I've had a few questions today about this particular map, and it's a little confusing in the wording, but we are using the wording that is put forth through the MLCC. So essentially what is in the blue there, that is considered the social district. However, that is not where people can consume those beverages. The area in the light green, that really is outlining mostly the sidewalks through the district, and then the addition of the Marquette Commons, the Rosewood Walkway, and the Philomeniso Pocket Park there. That is actually the commons area where people are actually allowed to consume those social district beverages. So that's generally where people are going to be. So it's going to be in those public places, and it's going to be those sidewalks and those designated public locations. The way the law is written through the MLCC, it does not allow somebody to bring that beverage into another business, whether they be retail or another food service establishment. They would not be able to do that through this law.
And would you mind just commenting real quick on the dark green?
Oh, sure. And the dark gray is actually part of our district, the very dark gray. So that goes out into the
event common area.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the dark green. I'm sorry. The dark green is the events common area, and that is something that will allow for certain events that may come up throughout the year to potentially shut down blocks for events that may come up. So, for instance, Blueberry Fest. We may decide that we would like to shut down the street for that and extend the social district to go into the street for that day. So the way our management plan is written is that we would be able to do that for the day with the approval of the city of Marquette through the normal channels that we would fill out for closing down a street. And then the one other question I didn't get to that you had asked was about on public property, specifically like outdoor seating and things like that. Let me think of a place to use for an example. Delft, for example, they do have outdoor seating in the summer. So because their liquor license does extend there, they would only be serving drinks to their customers there, and those drinks would have to stay on within that area there. However, if somebody were to go in there to get a social district beverage, they could take that out and go anywhere within the social district commons area.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other questions? Anybody? City manager, do you still have something?
No, I just really wanted to say that this has been a partnership between the city and the DDA, and it really we've worked really closely together, and really relying on the DDA to manage this, but we know that we're here for support, and ultimately, the decision to revoke any of this does come back to before the city commission, and nothing stops the city commission from communicating with me to communicate back to Tara on some of this stuff. So we will be monitoring it closely, and we're really excited to see the potential for this to really support the businesses and other opportunities. Thank you.
And Tara, is there anything like you want us to add that
Sure, there's one other part of this management plan that we have, that we are aware that not every potential event that comes up is necessarily suited for a social district. So we do have it written in here that we can shut down the social district for particular days or events where we feel like, maybe this isn't the best thing for what's going on. Specifically, children-centric events or things like that. For example, last October, we shut down the 100 and 200 block of Washington Street for downtown trick-or-treating. And we definitely want to keep that a kid-oriented activity. And so we would likely, end up suspending the social district for that day so that it doesn't turn into a townwide party for Halloween. So it would really stay focused on the children that day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, if there's no further comment or discussion, City Clerk, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. With that brings us to our second public comment session of the evening. As a reminder, public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when giving comment. If we have anyone for public comment, just feel free to come up to the center podium here.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street, not speaking on behalf of the Board of Light and Power, not speaking on behalf of Northern Michigan University, just speaking on behalf of me. Last fall, very late in the fall, the city opened the 2 brand new piers in South Marquette, and they immediately became a hit. I had been involved to the extent I attended all of the work sessions, requesting, begging, pleading for a observation window to be installed. And much to my delight, it has been installed. And everyone I have seen go out on the pier just is fascinated by it. Little kids doing belly flops because it's cool. It needs underwater lighting. And that I cannot bring to the city when we're broke and you're basically having to raise taxes to do essential services. So I partnered up with Don Fossbender of Diver Don and his 501c3 corporation. And on behalf of the desire to have underwater lighting, I have ordered 2 sets of underwater lights. And for all you people who are sustainability issues, they're solar powered. These are pond lights. They're designed to be put underwater. They're designed to be powered by the sun. And they're designed to illuminate underwater for the benefit of people looking at it. I have purchased them with my own money. I will test them when they come to my house. I will put them in a bucket of water and put the solar thing in the window and make sure that they all work. As soon as I'm sure they all work, they'll be transferred to Mr. Fossbender, who will then coordinate with John and make sure that it is in the city's interest to have these lights installed. Again, I'm not doing this because I have unlimited wealth. I'm doing it to complete a project that was well started and well funded and just needs a little bit more light on the scene to make it be fantastic. And lest you think that these are cheap and they'll fall apart, I've had these solar-powered lights in my backyard for the last 3 years, and right now the snow is melting and the light is coming up even though you can't see it. My second comment has nothing to do with the first comment. I just didn't want anybody to be surprised when these lights showed up. My second comment has to do with I've observed public comment from other people talking about fluoride. I'm making my comment to the mayor. I'm not addressing them. I would recommend one citizen to the mayor that all of these comments you're receiving that people want you to comment on be referred to the Marquette County Health Department, as is your custom, to review and to comment back to the city of Marquette. Because the Marquette County Health Department is responsible for the health and well-being of everybody in this county. It's not the city commission that can evaluate what you're being asked to evaluate. It really should go to the Marquette County Health Department. And on one last note, if one more person gets up and tells me I've been developmentally delayed because I drank fluoridated water in the city of Marquette, I'm going to print out every patent application I ever wrote and I'm going to put it on their front porch. And then they can tell me again I'm developmentally delayed and I'm sorry for going over time. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment this evening?
It's tough to follow, but I made a promise. So Matt Lutenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave. Going back to funding of city services, I guess. I'm an advocate for recreation, and recreation that doesn't include alcohol or competitive sports. Okay, so I would like more of a passive recreation. Going out on the piers, perfect. Going into the water, seeing the water, awesome. Do that. Please do that. I will recommend, though, that solar panels don't really hold up. We've proven this on the last couple of ones with the BLP, but getting enough solar panel energy down to a light can be tricky in our weather systems. So nonetheless, I'd love to see them plugged in, is the bottom line of that pure aspect. Getting back to the recreation level of things, because I want to make this clear. I don't mind the social district. I'm actually looking forward to a Tuesday afternoon walking from Black Rocks down to Van Gogh's and having a beer at either and having some food and walking all the way back up to Main Street Pizza. Open intox in the city of Marquette on these streets. It seems dangerous, but I'm looking forward to seeing how we tackle this problem. I would love to see a trolley for that reason. Get some cars off the roads and actually have people walking more or less. I go back to the recreation in this town. We already have a place set up on the bike path that's called Lakeview Arena. Lakeview Arena has been neglected for a little while. There is Parks and Rec is centered there. They also have 2 open seats on the advisory committee, which I admit I would probably be a perfect candidate for, except I'm going to corrupt it. I'm going to be corrupted, and I'm going to try to fund Lakeview Arena. That seems evil, so I don't want to do it. But I would run for one of the open seats here. I don't see how the city allows a place like Lakeview Arena that currently, right now, has ice that you can go ice skating on for whatever reason, except you would be arrested for trespassing because you didn't rent the ice. I don't rent the trails to go bike riding. I don't rent the park to go play on the playgrounds. I don't rent the tennis courts. Why do I have to rent a facility that the city of Marquette, we the taxpayers, have already paid for? We've already put it in place. You've already made the facility, I don't want to say profitable, but manageable. We can actually use it for what it's made for. How is it that we are restricted unless we rent it? And I go back to parking or baseball diamonds, basketball courts, tennis courts, normal parks. We don't pay for any of those. I would like to see that please taken over on Lakeview Arena and the Parks and Rec Department. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else for public comment this evening? Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Which brings us to comments by the commission. I believe I'm starting off with Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your memory is good, Your Honor. It's my turn to lead the pack. Great meeting tonight in a lot of ways. A lot of good news. Certainly the affordable housing development is certainly a step in the right direction. Okay, certainly a step in the right direction.
Sorry, I don't even know how to turn it off.
Just hit that green button at the top.
And we have hope for spring coming too, so let's keep our eyes on that. Other than that, Your Honor, that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, hats off to the DDA and, attempting, we have 2 new items that we haven't done in the city before, so a bit of an experiment on how they move forward. Certainly look forward to how they work out and, how quickly the city may adapt and how quickly the DDA may react if there are issues that are, arise with it. In addition to that, as I said at a previous meeting, I'm glad to see BlackRock development moving forward, or at least the next step. I know it's not moving forward, the next step moving forward. So this is one of the many hurdles that you have to move forward on, and I certainly wish you luck.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. Spring is coming. With that, we can definitely see our roads deteriorating. I know Public Works is fully understanding the situation at hand. We have numerous residential streets with just potholes everywhere. Residents, we hear you. I've had numerous people reach out to me. Believe me, the good people that do the hard work over there, they know what's going on, and it's something that's going to be addressed as soon as possible. As soon as we can kind of get through this frost situation, it'll be taken care of. Second, like I said before, I'm excited about the social district. I think it's going to bring a lot of opportunities for our businesses downtown, and that is extremely important. I think it also just kind of gives a really different look to downtown Marquette, as will the Wednesday Farmers Market. I know it's something that everyone's kind of hopeful for on the DDA, to give more of a festival atmosphere in the summer, to kind of bring just a vibrancy that's not there. So I'm really hopeful and excited to see what that turns to, and yeah, bring on summer. Let's go.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
First of all, Your Honor, I apologize for the disruption. I have some excited grandchildren on spring break, I guess. Ms. Brum, that is a very nice gesture to add something to our peers. I'm hoping it's not a total surprise to the city, and we will see if it's something that we can work out. I'm going to ask if the city manager will address the cost of the elections, and I know that what we recently voted on as voters last November probably increased the cost. And finally, this Wednesday, March 29th, is a National Vietnam War Veterans Day. March 29th, 1973 was when the last U.S. combat forces departed Vietnam. It was, it's a war of my generation, and I have many close relatives and friends that were called up or volunteered into action. It was a very unpopular war with debates and protests, and unlike other wars, the troops that returned home were not really welcomed and returned to a lot of controversy. They were often harassed and disrespected. And this is a day, this Wednesday, is a day that reminds us to give them that welcome home that they deserve. So I urge you to display, oh, I didn't know I was going to get emotional. I urge you to display our national flag. If you have one, acknowledge any Vietnam veterans that you encounter this week, and just pause to think about what happened during that time. Thank you.
I will also try to be somewhat short and brief here. I'm very excited by some of the things we approved here tonight. I'm really excited for the DDA to see how you handle 2 very big new projects. I also wanted to say thank you, Margaret. Assuming that we can figure it out with staff and that it'll work, and there's no reasons why it couldn't. I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert in anything involving that. So I will admit, though, the first time I looked through the platform, I had a similar thought that you really just can't see very far. So that'll be interesting if we can make that work. City manager, just so I don't forget here, I do have 3 different things maybe you could talk about. The first was the municipal election costs as well, which I believe our city clerk had given us some numbers before in a presentation on. Another aspect, if you could again explain a little bit of the housing versus commercial tax aspect for us. And the last thing, and if you can't talk about it right now, it's okay, but if you could respond to the question brought up by the Marquette junior hockey coach, I would appreciate it as well. And I'll also yield.
Thanks. All right, before I get to those items, I have one very important item I wanted to just really briefly talk about. I wanted to wish a happy birthday to our IT specialist and AV guru, Taylor. So Taylor, hi. He's spending his birthday with us, and he's managing the audio and video services for all of our people here in the audience, but also at home and for replay. So we have a very dedicated staff within our IT division who spend their birthdays and spring breaks and vacations with us. So again, happy birthday to Taylor. His efforts and all the efforts within the IT division are seriously undervalued. And really, we don't get a chance to highlight them because they're literally behind the scenes here working on it. So thank you for all that you do. The cost of elections. So our elections, the data that we have, the cost of an election is about $20,000, and that is based off of some review of various elections, the ones that are widely participated in and those that aren't, and it's about $20,000. This coming election in May is actually going to be reimbursed. The ballot initiative on there is for Marisa, I believe, and that will be reimbursed by Marisa. And oftentimes when it is a special election, but one that is by school district, intermediate school district, state, federal, those kinds of things, they are reimbursed. So we do receive a portion of those. If we were to hold an election, let's say for just a special election, just for special election for a city commission or another ballot initiative, we would have to front that cost. So typically you do see those kind of joint together. Try to piggyback off of those for cost effectiveness if we had to. So speaking on the housing versus commercial, so apartment complexes, residential real property includes our housing or any apartment complexes that I think are about 4 units or less. And our assessor could speak better on this, and I can provide a more detailed explanation to our city commission here. But apartment complexes that are more than 4 units are considered classified as commercial. And those classifications are really so that you can kind of compare some of those valuations and assessments off of like properties. So it doesn't mean that they are necessarily taxed differently. However, commercial properties don't get to see or realize that homestead or principal resident exemption that our homes are experiencing, which the difference in those tax millages are homestead properties or ones that qualify for the principal resident exemptions don't pay the school operating millages. Whereas those that do not have those or non-homestead properties do. So those tax bills do tend to be a little bit higher because those school millage, operating millages are higher. So I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit. Again, I can really go ahead and go into further detail from our assessor at a later time. We'll probably hear this maybe more towards budget time when we talk about tax values. And then speaking about ICE and something that we've kind of dubbed as summer ICE. This is a really unique year that we will have ICE in those summer months because of a community need, actually. And I really commend city staff and NMU for coming together to make sure that we do have available ICE within our summer months because we, as the city, do not have Lakeview Arena operating as an ICE arena during summer. Our facility isn't really meant for it. NMU's ICE arena is a little bit different and has that capability to do that a little bit more efficiently or effectively. However, they are doing some major work on their facility and have really kind of come to us and said, hey, is this possible? The arrangement that we've made with NMU is really just essentially a cost neutral option. We are really not making money. Again, an insurance policy sure is a nice way to say it, but we're covering costs at this point. Now, we do have to decommission the ice and remove the ice, and I will say that we have 2 arenas or 2 ice rinks, 2 sheets of ice. We have the Olson and the Russell Arena, and the Olson is currently removed already. and the Russell Arena will be removed after the last week of April. This allows our floor and our ground to thaw. If we continue to operate with the ice installed or too soon, that ground will not thaw, and we run the risk of damaging our flooring that we have that is specific for ice. There really isn't much that we can do at this point that is not a significant risk. So unfortunately, that is not something we can entertain. We have evaluated this very specifically. So we will put the ice back in the Olson rink or arena. That will be ready the last week of June. Well, we put it in the last week of June and ready in July. So in July, you'll see that ice back there in order for our groups to experience and continue to practice, because we will have a sheet of ice removed. We are looking, again, as we do enter into budget, we are really seriously looking at how we can make Lakeview Arena, efficient and cost-wise, and obviously operational too. So I hope that answers some questions on summer ice, and I do feel for those user groups that are not having somewhere to practice for a couple of months, but this is really one of those anomalies, and we run the risk of really doing some serious damage and not having any ice at all. So, and I believe that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. And with that, we are adjourned at 7:31 p.m.